So guys, update 1.6 for Insurgency Sandstorm is finally here, and well, it's a pretty big one with a new map, new weapons, and a ton of other new features. And obviously that means there's going to be a lot to talk about in this video. So guys, this is BillyEatWorld again, and let's find out. Alright guys, how you going? Welcome to the video, and to kick off, obviously the first thing we really want to talk about in this video is the new map called Power Plant. And look, I know we went into this a little bit in the last video, but if you did miss that one, well, just to bring you up to speed, it's basically set in a destroyed industrial area in the shadow of a giant hydroelectric dam. Now, apparently the devs were inspired in part by the ruined industrial aesthetic of something like Chernobyl, but also by the terrain of the more lush green areas of somewhere like northern Iraq. So look, yes, it does still kind of feel like you're fighting somewhere in the Middle East, but most importantly, it feels that way in a completely different way to the rest of the maps in the game. Now, as for the gameplay, well, I think probably one of the main things that I've got to say I don't really like about the vanilla maps is that they're usually impossibly hard for the attackers in modes like Push. But I've got to say, with each DLC map that the devs bring out, it really seems like they're putting a lot more work into fixing this, because I mean, sure, there's still a ton of choke points in this map, but there's also a lot of flanking routes as well. And I think what's really interesting is that Power Plant seems like it's a really big map, but actually it's not really that big at all. It just seems that way because it's got a lot of verticality going on. And not just that, but the huge industrial buildings means a lot of the action ends up indoors. So effectively what you get is a map that feels big, but it's also really damn good for CQB as well. Now, moving on, and speaking of CQB, well, the other big new feature we've got in this update are obviously the two new weapons for the Advisor Kit, which are the Tavor 7 for the security team and the Ace 53 for the insurgent team, both of which are large caliber select fire battle rifles. Now, something else I should mention is that you're going to notice that these two weapons haven't just been added to the game, they've actually replaced the Mark 14 and the SVD on the Advisor Kit, which are now exclusive to only the marksman. And that's because, well, firstly, both of these guns were maybe just a little bit too good in a run and gun playstyle, so rather than nerf them, what the devs figured they'd do instead is restrict them to just one class. Now, that actually kind of makes sense if you look at the stats of the Mark 14, for example. You'll see it's basically better than both of these guns pretty much across the board. They've both still got the same hard-hitting damage model and the same 20-round capacity, but you'll actually notice both of them have got even more recoil than the Mark 14 and the SVD, which were pretty bad to begin with. So the question is then, why would you even want to bother running these guns at all? And well, here's where the new class limitation comes in. Because basically, if you want to access the higher powered scopes, well, you'll have to run the marksman. But if you want to use close range optics, well, you'll have to run the advisor and put up with these two very cool, but maybe slightly less OP guns instead. Now, finally, the last big new feature I want to talk about in this video is the new modding tools, which have finally been released to the public in this update. And so if you are someone that's interested in making your own mods and levels, well, you can actually do that now. The devs have given access to the full Unreal Engine editor with all of the in-game assets. Now, even if you're not interested in that sort of thing, you still might want to check out and play other people's mods, which you're going to be able to find in the new in-game modding hub called Mod.io. And probably the most important bit of info you're going to want to know about this is that if you try and join a modded server, well, the good news is the mods or the custom maps will download for you automatically, which is going to take the hassle out of trying to match up your mod list. But finally, just before we finish up, here's a couple more things that you'll probably want to know about. Firstly, the devs have been working on Domination, and it's now available on all the maps, and they've apparently been improved as well. And not just that, but you'll also notice in this video the new death cam has been added as well. But just remember, if you don't actually like it, you can turn it off on your client or on the server. Also, speaking of settings, well, if you're someone who uses a controller, well, apparently there's a ton of new controller settings you can tweak now. Plus, the devs have added support for PS4 DualShock 4 controllers. And finally, the last bit of news, and I mentioned this one in the last video as well, if you're a Commander player, well, you'll be happy to know now that Insurgent Fire support has just got a massive buff in this update as well. Most of the strikes have had their duration increased, so make sure you check out the patch notes if you want some more specific info on those stats. But anyway, guys, that just about wraps up this quick update video. So as always, make sure you let me know what you think in the comments section down below. And just remember that I can't possibly cover every single detail of these patch notes in the one video. So just remember, if you do want some more info, I always leave a link to the full post in the description down below. As always, though, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and please feel free to check out the links in the description if you want to see any more of these videos. And don't forget, you can find my Twitter and Discord links down there as well if you want to keep in touch. And as always, until next time, see you later, and have a good one.